Hey, Duels rankings, right there. They're already on screen. You don't have to wait or anything. The best Duels heroes slash classes right now, according to me and according to some viewers who thought they knew and weighed in as well. So you're certainly welcome to trust either of these lists. They're mostly generally directionally similar. That said, in this video, I'm going to break down why I think these classes or heroes rank in these spots and also show you some deck lists to get you started. Now, I know right now it's really simple. Everything just has one base hero power and one base signature treasure for duels. That's going to get more complicated in the future. Rankings and tier lists are going to get much harder, but more and more people are getting access to duels right now through things like Twitch drops. It's going to open up to more people in the future, just naturally when it gets released and stuff. So I wanted you guys to be well equipped, well prepared to get a good head start in case you get into duels and don't know exactly what's going on. So here are some rankings. Feel free to, trust whoever, me or the viewers. We're both smart, and not that smart. Trust the viewers, and that'll help you pick your classes. Then as we talk here, I'll guide you through things a little bit and show you some decks as well. So let's start things off here with Mage. I think the unanimous #1 choice, and it really boils down to Mage's hero power here, Worm Bolt, which is a general use ping, but if you kill a minion with it, you get a mana worm. And clearly having extra mana worms kind of laying around, mostly for free, can be great for a class and deck that plays a ton of spells, and that's exactly what Mage likes to do. Your signature treasure increases the power of your Worm Bolt, which I found I'm often just going face when that thing goes to 2, because I'm like ending the game by the time I find it. But in a pinch, it can be nice to clear, nice little 2/2 or 3/2, and still get a mana worm, which is fantastic, just evening out some of those damage gaps that might be there. Now, when it comes to building a base deck for Mage, I mean, the rules are kind of the same for all Duels decks right now, since we don't have a ton of data, and these lists are all kind of just, like theories and like, oh, this one worked really well, and this idea worked great. Nobody knows for sure that these are the best things, but this particular deck list and a number of the ones you'll see in this video came from some teamwork from the Doritos Duels NA team that I was a part of, where we recently won the Doritos Duels tournament thing from Crip, and I'm going to get apparently 6 months of Doritos. Like the best day of my life. Anyway, this deck list comes from guys like Zalay and Firebat and so on and so forth. And it should be pretty darn good as far as any good Mage list is concerned, because it's running good cards. And that's really the point I wanted to get to. Most lists these days are just good cards. Take the best cards you've got, play it almost like a Highlander list, a little bit higher tempo in many cases, because you don't want to fall behind in those early games too much before you really start refining your deck with treasures and card buckets. It's also nice to have some play arounds in there. Cards like Pinflinger can be great for Band of Bees, for instance, and just all the various spells that Mage has. Janice Burroff can be great if you get like a Battle Cry synergy, for instance. So having cards that can play into specific directions, and certainly Mage is great for all the different spell damage and spell discount-based treasures that exist. All that works great, and this list should help you achieve that really nicely. Threats with Jandice and Raz. You got burst damage with Fireball, Frostbolt. You got value generation with Wand Thief. You've got spell damage synergies. You've got card draw, removal with Combustion, and Firebrand. It does a little bit of everything. It's just playing the best cards, and that's usually a great recipe for success in duels. So I think you'll have a lot of luck with this list or ones similar to it. Moving over here to Shaman, my second best class for duels. I think I've had a lot of good runs with Shaman. I might like it a little better than most people, but I think it can do some crazy stuff. Mainly thanks to its hero power. Getting a couple bodies on board is fantastic for various treasures in the run, whether that's just stuff that's getting evolved via your signature treasure, or things like ever-changing elixir that are evolving your board, or just gaining armor when your minions die, so on and so forth. Just having stuff on board is great, because it's a reliable way to generate resources off a Mana Tide Totem, crazy plays with Trick Totem. Flame Tongue can help you build a pretty intimidating board. So I love this hero power, and the decks for Shaman are generally encouraging that hero power by having some overload cards, and particularly really high tempo early game plays like Tour Guide and Lightning Bloom that can just help you swarm a board early. You've also got that nice mix of good cards, some weapons to help gain tempo, some board builders with Molten Blast, and even Diligent Note Taker's a little minion. Maelstrom Portal's kind of another swing card. You got follow-up burst damage with Bloodlust, threats like Raz and Totem Goliath, and just a nice mix of high-powered stuff. My favorite way to play Shaman is definitely with a spell focus. Spell damage can be amazing with cards like Molten Blast and burst damage, and discounts are particularly nuts with Instructor Fireheart. She can go completely crazy if you have anything that discounts spells you play, like Khadgar Scrying Orbs or even Sticky Fingers. She can like single-handedly win games. So you kind of have to have Fireheart here because she's a fantastic build around in Duels. Next up here, the number 3 spot's Demon Hunter. And Demon Hunter's just like in Standard or Wild or wherever else. It's great at creating tons of face damage and face pressure in Duels. That's because Infernal Strike, the hero power here, anytime you kill a minion, once you've hit that button with your face attack, it's going to give you a second slice. And that means you can develop, 2, 3, 4 second slices throughout the course of the game, stack those up for a crazy Blade Dance or a big heal off Aldraki, or just 8 damage to the face on combination with your hero power and your Chaos Strike, etc. You go 10, 12 damage to face and just blow people up, particularly in early games when health totals are still very low. To complement that, you've got the Soul Fragment package here to give you power cards like Soul Shard Lapidary, Militia. You've got Shard Shatter Mystic for some great early game swing potential. There are also some big demon hunt or big demons in this list because of the signature treasure for Demon Hunter, Summoning Ritual. But frankly, I wouldn't get too caught up on Summoning Ritual. I think it's more of an afterthought. I think just the Soul Fragment, face pressure, standard like Soul Fragment style Demon Hunter is really what drives this so much in Duels. It's not big demons. It's not the signature treasure. Often it actually feels kind of bad to play this treasure because the dormant payoff is so late and so slow. Only in certain scenarios are you even going to have time to play this thing well. So don't get caught up on big demons and the signature treasure. Just play this like normal and you're still going to find a lot of success. Next up here, we got Paladin, Turalian, and crazy hero power. Summons a friendly minion that died this game with 1 health. So if you have great minions in your pool, crazy death rattles, divine shields, that thing can spin into a lot of value over the course of the game with just sticky stuff on board. The signature treasures, cheating out big legendary minions and also pumping out tons of damage. I used to be a little higher on Paladin, but sometimes I think this hero power is just a little too passive and Greatsword's just a little too slow. And in general, like Paladin buckets and cards aren't quite as good and don't quite come together with various treasures in Duels, maybe like Mage or Shaman do, where the spells just seem to line up so well. Paladin's in a little bit more weird of a spot where you have to get really perfect sorts of treasures to support it nicely. Now, this deck list is a little bit different. A lot of people try to hard force the kind of resurrection from the hero power. This one's got some cards you might not be super excited about, like Secret Keeper, even Worgen Infiltrator. You're kind of like, well, it's got stealth, but is that really that great to come off the hero power? It's a 1-mana minion. But nonetheless, this plays much faster than average, higher tempo, which is good. You need to have that base to keep up in those first few games before you define your deck. It's also got the big legendary support for the Greatsword, some Allura, spell burst options in case you build into buffs, which is absolutely a possibility for your Duels run. So you've got a secret angle, a buff angle, a big legendary death rattle angle, all of which can help you define your build as you go on, which makes this a great starter deck list. All right, so next up here is Druid, and starting here, and for a few of these, we've got some deck lists basically from the Hearthstone community, decks people have succeeded with and shared, because either I don't have a ton of experience or our team for the Doritos Duels didn't come up with deck lists for these particular classes. Most of these I sourced from hearthstone-decks.net, which I'll link in the description, but they are also just sourcing these from people who've posted them on Twitter, etc. So for instance, we got Druid here. Nature's Gifts, if you don't know the hero power, you can either gain +2 attack or spell damage +2, which can both be pretty nutty. Warden's Insight's either a way to refresh some extra mana for a big crazy turn or just getting a bunch of treants on board. And this deck list, and also the kinds of decks I've found the most success with so far in Druid, are hyper token tempo style decks, as opposed to what we've seen so far, which are kind of like best card Highlander styles almost. I mean, everything's Highlander in Duels. You can't run duplicates, but Highlander style, where you just take your best cards and put them in a list. This one does things a little bit differently, and it plays more for a specific archetype, which is really fast start, high pressure token style deck. So you got Gibberling starts with a ton of buffs early, initiates, so all that spell burst, summoning, and buff pressure. I mean, you can see this deck tops out at 3 mana and runs raid leaders. But here's the deal. There are so many great token buckets and so many ways to discount cards in spells in Duels buckets. Like, you're just going to get offered all of these crazy adorable infestation, Power of the Wild, Savage Roar buckets, and Soul of the Forest, and you're going to get your spells all discounted by 1, and then you're going to get another discount of some sort. You can completely blow things up with these decks, and thanks to cards like Voracious Reader and various other ways to draw more cards via Duels treasures, you can actually do that somewhat successfully and just make these crazy pushes, try to reload, make another push, and just overwhelm people with sticky boards. Because although there is removal in Duels, it's still sometimes at a premium. Not everybody has access to like the perfect removal package, particularly early in the game. So you can just snowball out of control in the first few turns, overwhelm people, use your hero power to find additional damage, or just push them over the edge, keep the board in check, and swarm to success. So I know this list might look a little bit all in. It kind of is all in, but that's supported fairly well in Duels, and that's why a deck like this one can go to 12 wins. I've seen other people try to play later game Druids. I don't think they're as consistent, believe it or not. So if you're feeling like taking a run at some hyper token, high pressure Druid, it can work. Moving on here to Hunter, and I think most people like Hunter a lot more than me. I reaffirmed that earlier today by trying to force some Hunter builds in Duels, and you just can't get anything consistently enough, in my experience, to make Hunter feel great. There are absolutely high roll Hunter builds that get crazy death rattle synergies, where they're doubling death rattles and instant resulting death rattles and all these just absurd high tempo turns. But that's not consistent. Even if you load up your deck with death rattles, you're not guaranteed to get those treasures, trust me. So you might see a lot of Hunters at high wins, but that's just selection bias happening, where they're only getting there if they had some crazy high roll treasure. Everybody else, I feel like, is going 3-4 wins, and it's just you're not seeing them much because it's hard to get over the corner there. Now, some people might have different opinions. Of course, we're still operating on really small data sets. I've only played a handful of runs. Nobody's done that much yet. So some people disagree. I think Hunter's more in the middle of the pack than high up. And that's really because Hunter is a class and archetype and card style that plays very fast. They go for face damage. And often in Duels, it's hard to turn the corner and like get those killing blows and finish people as health totals start to creep up, because you don't stay at 30 health in Duels. You start at 20, you go up to 40. People get hard to kill at that stage, and they're starting to do crazy things in the mid game, where they're just going to build this enormous board and kill you before you have a chance to get that final like 10 chip damage in that you need to win the game. And this hero power is very much face focused. It's not board focused or tempo driven, although it gives things attack that doesn't add up enough to really influence the board from an attack standpoint. Slate Syringe, I think, is a great treasure. It can single-handedly swing games in the mid game, like buff a giant beast, go face for a ton. But even that doesn't scale super well compared to what a lot of people are doing in Duels decks, so it kind of falls off in the middle of your run. Death Rattle cards only scale if you have exactly the right treasures. Secret stuff only scales often through the mid game. Secrets just don't add up that much when everybody's doing completely broken things. So the deck's like good to get maybe 4 or 5 wins consistently. Maybe if you're really good, even more. But I don't think this is the end-all be-all of Duels decks. You can see here with the starting package, it's a mix of secrets and death rattles and beast synergy. So it's, again, kind of a multi-pronged deck that you can play towards any of those directions. But only death rattle, I think, really gives you the big late game potential, and that's not guaranteed and somewhat rare. So for me, Hunter, still solid. I mean, you can see it's still in the top half or whatever here of classes, but I don't like it quite as much as most. Moving on here to Warrior. Good old Rattle Gore, no guts, no glories. The hero power, you can either kill a minion to gain some armor, or just ping a minion to give that minion a little inner rage, basically +2 attack. You got this signature treasure. It's a nice little minion. Whenever it takes damage, you draw a minion and buff it. And ultimately, I don't think those combine into a great start for Warrior. The hero power is kind of weird. Like, it's not bad because you can use it to clear up the board and gain some survivability. You can certainly use it to help you take trades when you're buffing things or just deal a ton of damage. So I think at the end of the day, it's fine. I don't love the signature treasure a ton. It often feels like it's only taking 1 or 2 hits. It just doesn't pay off all that much. I think its stat line should be higher at a base. When it comes to building a Warrior deck list, we've got one here that features a nice mix of stuff. It's got some synergies for, that Enraged style with Frothing Berserker. It's got some charge minions to ping like Korkron and Grom. It's got just some value stuff like Rattle Gore, some tempo stuff. like the Death's Bite, and Lord Barov can be great to swing boards as well. We got Armor Smith to gain life, just a little bit of Whirlwind and Rage package, all mixed together into one nice big bundle, kind of like that Highlander style again. But I found it was kind of hard to find defining buckets for Warrior so far. I need to do more runs for Warrior, I think. But the Enraged stuff, it's like it kind of comes together, but it's the same story as Hunter. You don't feel like you're great at ending games necessarily. You don't have any big like thing to play towards, like the spell-based classes often have such a great refined game plan. It never felt like Warrior to me really got there in that regard. But this is a great list to start with. Cards like Athletic Studies, I think, are great. Lord Barov's awesome when you're always worried about clearing insane boards. You need cards like Korkron and Grom to create finishers. So great deck list to use. Just don't expect a ton of great success with Warrior. I think most people agree it's, in the bottom half of heroes pretty firmly. Moving on here to Priest. And to be frank, I haven't played a lot of Priest still. I've had a few runs that didn't go well, so that's why it's not ranking particularly high for me. I don't feel like I see a lot of Priests in my high win runs either, so it doesn't seem like it's working great for other people, which is weird because I look at it, it seems like the hero power is awesome, just card draw and a lot of survivability. I think Priest cards are good, but I think it's another one where the buckets and the treasures perhaps just don't really cement and come together into anything particularly exciting. There's no defining build or aspect that supports what Priest wants to do. I also think Priest just doesn't have enough pressure or output, so it's always just like kind of trying to keep up, and it's really hard to keep up when people are doing broken things via treasures. Normal cards and reactionary stuff isn't as good as dictating the pressure and dictating the game, how it unfolds via your, double death rattles and your crazy high spell damage. If Priest is just kind of sitting back and responding all the time, they're eventually just going to cripple and get overwhelmed by all of that pressure. So, this is a great deck list for Priest. It's clearly a 12-win deck. It's possible to get those things. It's got a nice control package, some Dragon Synergy stuff, some high-tempo swing cards, a lot of removal and survivability, and that's awesome. That's what Priest wants to do. Just be careful with Priest because you're going to have to get kind of the perfect run, I think, to do super well. That said, you can probably still put together a decent run most of the time just because you've got a lot of good cards in this list. So now we're down to the bottom two, and I think these are most people's decided bottom two. Don't have a lot of debates here. Rogue is second to last. The hero power kind of just feels like almost a normal Hearthstone hero power. It doesn't feel that great. You have to combo it in particular to get the upside, and that upside's pretty minor compared to a normal hero power. The signature treasure doesn't feel all that good to me either. It can create some damage outs. It can be poisonous to clear minions, but you don't really want to be doing that with your face a lot in duels. And those are the problems for Rogue. That said, I've still had some success with Rogue. We had an 11-win run you can check out on YouTube, real close to 12 wins. And that was by creating just high damage, high pressure deck with tons of weapon pressure and weapon support, and also getting some crazy Jan Despair-off plays, doubling battle cries, etc. You can see that deck list here. It's just a weapon-based deck with pressure, eviscerates, deadly weapons, Volpira. It's got Blade Flurry to help you stabilize sometimes if you need to. Steel Dancer, Greenskin, and Krasinov for weapon synergies, cutting class to draw cards. Jandis for pressure. It just does a little of everything, but really focuses in on weapons in particular. And I think that's what you have to do if you want to succeed with Rogue. You can't run Steel Sharpening Sword, or Self-Sharpening Sword, it's banned, but you can get it really early in your run, which could help a deck like this a ton to just go hard, face, and win. And then finally at the bottom here, we have Warlock. Everybody hates Warlock. It's pretty decidedly the worst Duels hero. I don't think many people debate that point, because the hero power is really awkward. Dark Arts, you see 4 cards in hand, you pick one, that gets discarded, and you draw a card to replace it. Which, if there were a lot of discard synergies in the rotation right now for Duels, might be amazing, but there's only a handful. There's not very many. There's basically Bone, Web, Egg, and Silverware Golem, and that's it, which can create a little bit of tempo, but not even that much, frankly. It's not like it's a crazy play compared to everybody else's absurd hero powers and treasures. So that's problem number one. I also think the signature treasure for Warlock's a little bit hard to use with Impish Aid. Like, it's got some zoo style stuff, but it's kind of expensive. If it was like a 2-mana 2/4 instead of a 3-mana 4/3, it would be much, much better so you could get it down earlier in the game. But by the time you're playing this on like turn 4 or 5, everybody else is already turning the corner and doing crazy stuff. So pretty challenging to put together a good deck for Warlock. It just doesn't play fast enough. It doesn't have any synergies that come together. The buckets are awkward. It just feels really, really bad to play. Getting to 4 or 5 wins is a triumph, I think, with Warlock. This list that was from HearthstoneDecks.net and it was from the player Dice Roll. Apparently got to 9 wins, which seems like a real, just obscenely crazy challenge on how he did that. But congrats to him. Maybe some people out there have gotten 12 wins too, but you're going to have to get some just nutty treasure rolls. You know, take Totem of the Dead and Wax Scandal and or Wax Rager and just go crazy or something, right? Otherwise, this just isn't going to work well. It's pretty decidedly the worst of the heroes in Duels. And there you go, folks. Those are the rankings for Duels and some starter decks. I hope that's helpful to people to break these down, how they're played, what they're all about. Really, most of you are just going to scroll through this and screenshot the deck. So bookmark this video, come back whenever you need a deck list or decide to pick whatever Duels hero you're going to pick. And, stay tuned because we'll make more of these videos in the future. Things are definitely going to change as new signature treasures and hero powers are revealed and unlocked in future Duels eras. But also keep in mind that not everybody's going to have access to those. So if you're still somebody who plans on playing the base hero power set and the base signature treasures, hopefully this video can serve to be useful for a while. And for the rest of you who don't care and never plan to play Duels, hopefully this still, helps you satiate some curiosities along the way. That said, share your thoughts in the comments below. Decks that have worked for you. What are your rankings? What's crazy here? What did I get wrong or right? I want to hear it all. And until then, thanks much for watching. And until next time, game on.